Gadsden, Alabama. I am one of them guys who, when you look at some of my past, you'd be like, how did he get there? But because I was raised, I had two-parent home, mom, stepdad, then I had my dad and my stepmom, all of my uncles and aunts that had been married 40, 50 years. So I come from a pretty good upbringing. However, I got introduced in 1984 to crack cocaine when I was 14 years old. And then I spent 25 years battling that addiction. And in the midst of that, of course, there was prison time and jail time and probation time and house arrest time. So March the 19th of 2012, I was released from prison for the last time after serving a 3.5-year sentence, which was probably my fourth or fifth, my fourth sentence. And I decided I was done with that lifestyle. And so I kind of just dug in, man, and made some decisions. The biggest one is I refused to relapse, refused to go back into that drug cycle, that using cycle. And so today I sit in front of you, man, with 16 years of sober time.
That's impressive. I mean, drugs are such a strong, strong addiction, especially with the cocaine, heroin, and things like that. But man, congratulations to you for making that leap. Of course, people want to know, like, man, how was that prison life for you? How did that shape the man who you are now?
So I'm gonna be honest with you, man. Like the longest time I ever did, and not that any time is good time, but the longest amount of time I ever did in one stint in prison is because I was a recidivist. I would go do 2-3 years, come home, go do 2-3 years, come home. But the longest stretch I ever did was like 4.5 years. And it's definitely hard. When I was going to prison, like it's a lot of stuff that goes on in prison that really kind of gets with your mental. For lack of a better term, all I can say is it wasn't easy. The biggest thing was, at that time I had started having kids. And so I missed a lot of my kids' early years because of bad decisions. And so that part of it is something that never goes away. And I live with that today. I got really bad relationships with a couple of my kids. And then I got some sometime relationships with the other ones. And so it's one of the things where you just try to figure out, I can never go back and replace that time that I missed from them. But you have to try to figure out what you can do to try to kind of fill in that space. And so just getting to relearn your family, allowing your family a chance to relearn you, and then you come home from prison, man, and you have these expectations from everybody. Don't nobody want to see you going back to prison. Don't nobody want to see you doing the stuff that you was doing to get yourself put in prison. And me as a person, for a while, never was able to figure out how to balance that out. You know what I mean? How to please my people, please myself, make sure I ain't going back to jail for probation violation, not having contact with the police, staying away from people that I know I don't need to be around. So it's really a mental thing.
So was it a particular story, though, or something that you witnessed in prison that kind of helped you to not continue to relapse and go back to prison? Or was it just, were you motivated by the fact that you have lost so much time with the people you care about?
I'm going to tell you a story, man. So the last time I got arrested was July the 27th of 2009, excuse me. Now keep in mind, a year before that, I just lost my grandma, who was one of the most important people in my life. And the only thing that my grandma had seen me do was get in trouble. And so the thought in my head was, man, I got to figure out how to do better. But my addiction was so rampant. So like about an hour before I got arrested, I had just got high. And when the police put the handcuffs on me, I felt like this weird feeling. I don't know how to explain. Like I felt like something was being pulled out of my body. And I said it was God pulling the spirit of addiction away from me. And so then they bring me back to Fort Wayne. I end up going to prison, and they end up putting me into what they call the therapeutic community program, which is basically a drug rehab program in prison. And I give that program a lot of credit for saving my life. The rational thought process. you never realize how many things you make sense in your life that don't make sense when you're going through that whole addiction thing. You never realize. Like for me, and I'm gonna be honest with you, bro, I started going to prison in 1990 or 89, 90. And back then, you know, you had A's, B's, C's, and D's. You can pretty much, if I got a class D, I'm gonna get this much time. Well, this is my first class D, so I'm probably gonna get this much time on the plea bargain. Like we used to sit up and rationalize the amount of time that we was doing. But how rational was that? You know what I mean? What kind of sense did that make? And so when I got into the therapeutic community and I started pointing out these little simple things like how unrealistic some of the stuff that I was thinking in my head was, it just kind of started changing my thought process. And once my thought process changed, and with along with me being sober, gave me a chance to get myself back together.
Okay, excellent, man. So now you say you have a little bit of, a few issues with the kids, but you are working hard. From what I see, you're doing a great, you're giving them a great example of how to change and how to move forward in life. So hopefully they take on some of these wonderful examples that you're showing them. You are a very well-connected person. You have a lot of great insight, and the things that you share with the community, your family, and people, it seems to be catching on because a lot of people who find a lot of interest in you. So where do you sit right now?
Oh, so I want to address something before I go into that question.
Okay, please.
So I would hope that, you know, some of the stuff that I'm doing now and the way that I'm living my life now is enough to show my kids that I've made some of these changes that I need to make with them. But I do find at times that with one specific daughter, specifically, because I got 4 girls, that...
Sorry. That's tough.
Woo! Yes. But she finds it harder to accept the fact that I'm able to do the work that I do, with specifically young kids today, because of the time that I missed in her life.
Wow.
And so, you know, those are the battles that you have to deal with. But I also have to look at it like this, man. I feel like, honestly, that God has placed the work that I do in my heart and given me the courage and the strength to move in the manner that I move. And so if I don't do what I'm supposed to do, then now I got to deal with my God. And, you know what I mean? And so, but to answer your question about where I sit right now, man, right now I feel like I am in a very good place. Some of the relationships that I built are really working towards the greater good and give me an opportunity to be more impactful in my community. I'm just thankful to have, you know, like me and you met during another family's crisis. And
yeah,
you know, we were able to work with that family and help that family. And so, you know, having people like you come around me since we met, we built a friendship. You know I could call you and get some good advice. I can share things with you. And so being in that part of my life is probably more important than anything, because for a long time I wasn't. I wasn't.
Well, I mean, I just want to touch back on that daughter thing, because I think that you raised a really good point. Me and my wife was having this conversation earlier about kids, and I was like, mothers usually have a very solid connection with their sons growing up, and fathers have a very solid connection with their daughters. And based on the nature of those relationships, we tend to produce children who are more empathetic, who care more about relationships, and, are more success driven. So I just wanted to touch on the importance of fatherhood in any kid's lives. And I just know that even though you're coming in at a later stage trying to correct and heal some of that, I know that will eventually resonate with your daughter, because, fathers to me are like, and this is where we get to like separate from mothers, because moms have a very hard deal that they have to do with their sons. But to me, I feel like fatherhood is more of a symbol more than actually doing it. And I say that because our kids, a lot of times, because of us having a breadwinner status, or even just the perception of having to go out and do things, our kids don't always get to see us, right? Especially me with my crazy work hours. I barely get to see my daughter. So in my mind, I feel like she symbolizes me. And the time we get to share is precious. But, so fathers, no matter what's happening in your life, if you're doing something good and positive, no matter where that starts at, our kids, especially our daughters, they start to symbolize us and they start to look forward to people who are like us, right? They want to find a man who's like you, who can weather the storm, who can come out a champion, who can keep building and growing. So I think you're on the right path, man, to healing that relationship with your daughter. And it's a maturity factor too, because everybody thinks like these kids are grown when they get a certain age. Man, I'm meeting 35-year-olds who ain't, ready for the world, right?
Absolutely.
But when we hit that certain point in our lives and we look back at our family struggle, our parents struggle, and we figure out like, hey, Dad didn't just get into this situation because of Dad. It was a lot of dominoes that fell that made things the way that they were. So it's not all his fault. He does take accountability for it now, but it's not all his fault. So I just feel like when they reach that maturity level, that's when it's going to click. And she'll be like, dang, you know what? My dad is a great man for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and so on. And while we are talking about prison and things like that, leads us right into the conversation, which is something that is very close to both of us, which is black on black crime. And not so much as just black on black crime. It's a lot of factors that cause black on black crime. Most of these podcasts that I see, they usually operate like this. They get on and they have a specific topic like black on black crime, and then they just instantly start chopping away at it at eye level, right? They're saying like, well, black people do this. This is what gets them in trouble. That's what gets them in trouble. But there are so many hidden factors behind why black people have such a high rate of criminality in usually urban communities. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think the biggest one of those factors is the unresolved trauma. The fact that for years, we as a people have dealt with trauma. Our lives have been trauma-filled throughout our life, throughout our existence. And so I definitely agree that there are so many different layers that play into this black on black crime thing. And so for me, just trying to separate those layers, try to get a better understanding, a more in-depth understanding. Specifically, I focus on juvenile violence. And I see these babies, man, you see these babies 13, 14, 15, 16 years old killing each other. And you wonder, like, what at 13 years old, killing was, I didn't even understand the concept of it. And so when I think about today and how easy it is for these young people to A, get these guns, and B, take the next person's life, it just makes you wonder, what can I do? What did I do to help trigger this? And what can I do to help fix it? And I know that a lot of it has to do with some of the addictions, the issues that I dealt with in my childhood. That kind of rolled over. Sometimes I feel like, it's like a snowball effect. You make a little small snowball, you start rolling it down the hill. As it goes down the hill, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Well, I feel like in 1984, 1985, I kind of helped start that snowball to rolling. And now here we are today with this big, huge, gigantic snowball, and it's preparing to crush a bunch of people, and we don't know what to do to stop it.
That's a good year to start, because I feel like around that time that a lot was going on in this country that produced a lot of those traumas for us. And sure, we can go back historically, and we can pick on slavery, we can pick on Jim Crow era laws, civil rights, the civil rights movement, and all of those negative things that, people just basically went after us for wanting to have a normal life, which is some crazy shit. When you think about it, right? Just wanting a normal life where you can drink from a water fountain and not have your kids ask why people were beating us, and throwing dogs at us, and shooting fire hoses at us in the streets. Just absolutely bizarre. It's bizarre. But even though we thought that we got past, we made it through civil rights movement successfully, and we were finally being given the opportunity to mesh in with normal society and take back some of those things we lost for 200 to 300 years. The 80s era, the Contra movement, where the CIA actually purchased drugs from, I believe it was Noriega, and drop those drugs off in the inner city. So, and that's what I mean by those things that contributed to the problems that we see that exist, the traumas and everything. Drop those drugs off for the purpose of disrupting a peaceful community, a community that was growing. And it seems like even through history, every time we tried to establish something positive, it was something orchestrated by our own government and by white supremacists and different factions of different whatever, CIA, FBI, whatever, to take away from our success. So that 1980s deal, when you first were introduced to some of these problems, it's indicative of why you had to go through some of those things that you had to deal with. Can you think of any other things beyond that have taken away from, that have added to black on black crime?
I definitely think that, and I'm gonna take the long way around with this answer. So
we got all day, man.
Here's the thing we gotta realize, bro. Them people was playing the long game, even before we even understood that they was playing a game at all. A lot of this stuff was written to play out just the way it is playing out, and I think that the biggest fault that we, or the biggest role that we play in that aspect of it is our lack of connection as a race. You watch every day, the Latinos come over here, they all bunch up, take care of each other. Asians come over here, they all bunch up, take care of each other. The Iranians, the Arabs come over here, they all bunch up and take care of each other. We've been here for years, and we don't take care of each other. We refuse to look out for each other. You might have a pocket here, and a pocket here, and a pocket here, but as a whole, we don't believe in supporting ourselves. And I feel like that's the biggest problem for the black community in the United States of America today. They can throw any little thing in front of us, and it takes all of our attention off of what the big picture is.
But is that like, of course, on surface level, that's the way it looks. But is that a part of that design? Like you just said, they're playing chess.
Absolutely.
We're playing checkers.
Absolutely.
We're playing a game that we weren't even ready to handle, because of every time we got a handle on it, it was destroyed. So, for instance, you got, laws that, where you can't congregate on corners, right? Those, even in policing today, that is still something that is looked at like, hey, you got a group of guys on a corner. Of course, that if it happens in a well-to-do area, it's just a couple guys out having a conversation. But if it happens in an urban community, then it could be something suspicious. Suspicious men sitting on a corner, which is primarily black and brown men. And then, of course, you have a host of other things that have taken away from us being able to build communities, such as starting to grow support chains in our communities in the 60s, which were like the Black Panther movements, the Black Stone Rangers, and all these different factions that started out. Yeah. They didn't start out as gangs.
Started out as positive.
Selling, giving food to the children, helping old ladies walk down the street, urban community investment tools. It was a center, a hub for everybody to get information, to learn about laws. And then, how can we build? I guess
the one common denominator in the breakdown of each one of the organizations that you was talking about is the fact that there was always one of us that was greedy, or he got himself in trouble and he was weak, and they planted him inside and used him to, kind of bring things to disarray. That's what happened to the Black Panthers. They broke the Black Panthers down by putting black people inside the group, infiltrate the group with black people who were acting as spies and stuff.
And still ain't yet, though. That's something that the CIA does very well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They always can have someone who's troubled and implant them into a group, which is how they try to take out Castro, right?
Yep.
And which is how they dismantled the former government that was before the Israeli government, by implanting people into our community. So we're looked at and feared already for reasons that I just don't totally understand. You know, for them to take these tools, these leverage tools, to be able to bring these people into our positive existence, something that we're doing to grow a community, and then implement that in and then dismantle it. So I do understand what you're saying, but there is a personal accountability to it now, because I honestly feel like we are at a point, and I don't know when it stopped, but it's a certain point where we're just doing it on our own now, which is what you're talking about right now.
Yeah, I the statement you made, personal accountability, and it relevates so deeply within me, and I'm gonna tell you why, bro. Because for 25, 30 years, I fucked up all the time, consistently, just fucked up. And the crazy part about it was all of my fuck ups, I always found a way to make it be somebody else's fault.
Right.
But the moment, the day that I looked myself in the face in the mirror and told myself that you're the problem, and started working on me, my life started getting better. Now, I ain't rich. I'm not no better than nobody. I'm still, the only two things that I own in this world is a GED and a DOC number. You know what I mean? I ain't got no high school diploma. I mean, I ain't got no college diplomas, none of that. What I realized, man, is that as long as I hold me accountable for the actions and things that I do, then I can deal with those things, the repercussions or the, you know, the consequences and repercussions or the goods and the bads, whatever, however you want to label it. I can deal with those things. And if I deal with those things on a personal level and move the way that I'm supposed to move, then the one thing that I'm learning, this is not to be like getting off on no religious kick, but
go right ahead.
like God gonna protect you. He will open up doors for you. He will help you find ways when you think that you can't figure it out at all. He gonna get you through there. The reason I emphasize that is because as a people, the one thing, like, we hated everything about slavery except for Christianity.
That's what got us into slavery.
There you go. There you go. And I'm not knocking none of these preachers, or I just myself don't tend to fool with them. And the reason that I don't fool with them is because for me, my relationship with my God is simple. They say God is a jealous God. They say he wants you to pray, give him his reverence, and understand that he is the only God. And these preachers be trying to push this stuff down your throat and into your head that, oh, all you gotta do is pray and pay your offerings and and God gonna make it. And God don't say all that in the Bible.
Right.
You know what I mean? Let me get back on track. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Nevertheless, bro, today, like you just said, in today's time, it's more us that are sabotaging ourselves than anybody else. I think that in this day and time, that if we as a people would find ways to lock in and work with each other, specifically, man, in the early 2000s up until now, if we'd have took advantage of all the opportunities that they had in the community for us to be able to work together and build on ourselves, then things would be 100 times better for us. But the problem is you got so many, it's the old saying, they say too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Everybody want to be the boss. Everybody want to be out in the front. And in my mind, that means we jealous. I don't want you to be better than me. You don't want me to be better than you. That's jealousy. As long as we keep that jealousy in the midst of everything, we ain't gonna never have nothing. And so I feel like we gotta just start learning how to love each other again, loving ourselves. Because when I look at you, I look at me, and vice versa.
Right. So
if you need my help and I can help you, it ain't no excuse for me not to help you, and vice versa. But we don't have enough of us who think like that in this country today.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on that. That there are some opportunities, some unique opportunities for us to come together. And of course, it's always some reason why we can't, whether it's jealousy.
I feel like this Donald Trump presidency is either going to make or break Black America. And what I mean, either because of the way that he's moving right now, he's either going to force us all to finally realize that we got to come back together and work together, or we're going to go to the wayside.
What does the wayside look like?
Shit, probably slavery again. Just to be honest with you.
Okay, we might have to get him out fast. Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, We got another voting cycle coming up, but I don't want to go back to slavery.
Hell no.
So what would be the chain of events that you think that would bring us back to that point? That's a fear. That's, to me, I hear, and I'm a swing voter, so I vote like right down the middle, depending on how I feel about things. But to me, that's always been a tactic that I've noticed by the left, is like that whole fear of slavery coming back, right? That kind of is the tool, the weapon that they primarily use to keep African Americans in that box with, voting liberal, is the fact that we're going back to Jim Crow. We're going back to pre-civil rights movement era. They're going to have us back in the 30s again. They're going to have us, and it just keeps going back to slavery. It never goes back to Africa, but somehow it goes right back to slavery. So, so what would be that chain of events that you think would take place?
Well, I think he's semi trying to put that shit in effect now, man. If you think about what he did in Washington when he brought the National Guard and the Army in to try to clean up the streets, and then he talking about bringing them over to Chicago. Mm-hmm. Well, at some point, he's just gonna, just bring them dogs through there, and if you ain't with it, they're going to either kill you or lock your ass up.
I would think though that maybe that tactic, which I do see a tactic there, I do see a chess play, but I would think that would be more of a voting tactic, right? Because if you militarize liberal cities, which is why, that's the elephant in the room, is like Republican-led cities have high crime rates as well. Louisiana, Mississippi, all these other places, some places in Texas have super high crime rates. And the military is not being placed there. The military is being placed in liberal cities. And for me, I kind of feel like the reason being is because it's a right-led city, so the vote is already there. You don't have to worry about it.
Right.
But if you get the liberal cities accustomed to the militarization of their environment, it's going to be easier when it's time for us to vote again, that there'll be possibly military personnel close to those lines. And we all know with the different laws that they put in place to the voter suppression laws, such as, you can't drink coffee in the line, right?
Yeah.
No food, no sandwiches. You can't bring a seat. You can't bring an umbrella. But we got these urban sprawls where you have these lines a block down. And we know that our voters are primarily older people. It doesn't take a lot for the older people to get disenfranchised and say, well, this is looking like the 60s. Let me go home. If I can't have a sandwich in line, if I can't do this in line. So I think around the time before we start to vote that there's going to be an uptick in some of these suppression laws. Absolutely. And then you'll tell the military, like, hey, your job is to uphold the law, and the voter laws are a part of the laws, and I need you to uphold those, so I need you to watch the lines. I think that would be more of the play than going back to slavery. I don't think slavery is something that we would ever go back to for a number of reasons now, because our numbers are very high in the military as well. Mm-hmm. We're needed, right? Our black bodies have always been needed. I think they recognize that since Vietnam. Like, hey, these poor people, these people who we pressed into these cities, sandwiched into these cities, perfect for the draft. But my nephews won't go because I can always give them a voucher for cataracts or something. There's always some reason why. I think even Donald Trump avoided the draft. But you got these military kids who are mostly coming out of the urban areas too. So I think we're very much so needed. I think the real deal is just Republican control, right? Or liberal control. Because on the flip side, we got so much fear mongering happening on that side to where we got a lot of people who are like, man, I got to stay liberal because if I don't, I could play into my own demise of being pushed back into slavery. So I think we're being played with on both sides. And I think that on just the political side of things, I really feel like that this is a wake-up call for liberals. And I'm a swing voter. But I think this is a wake-up call for liberals because you had the black community in your hands for 60 plus years. And the things that you've offered the black community pale, from a voter standpoint, pale in comparison to what this one president has done for his base in less than 6 years. He has given that's why they're so, and people don't understand that. They think it's a MAGA coat. No, it is, I am checking the boxes that I said that I was exactly going to do when you voted for me. And we've all said that before about when we vote, like, we're going to vote and we ain't going to get half the stuff that was promised. That's kind of the hidden kind of thing that I hear in the community. It's like, we ain't going to get nothing that we promised because, we're going to get, we're going to put all our eggs in this basket. We'll be hopeful to get something from it, but we're not going to get anything. And I think that's the weird thing is this guy is actually checking the box. You don't want Hispanic people here? Box checked. Fast. They said that the border had close to millions of people getting into the country back then per day. It's down to like 20, 30 people. That is a box checked. Yeah. MAGA is going to fight now for him, right? Yeah. You don't want black people's history in museums. Box checked. You tired of redistricting issues with liberals having too much control over certain districts? Box checked, right? It's wonderful. Depending on which perspective you're talking from, it's wonderful to see someone actually
come in and do what they say they're going to do.
And that's what I think liberals, if you guys, and I say you guys, I'm a swing voter, but if you want to get back to that where you got people pouring out, check those boxes right back off. Yeah. Day one, open back up the border. Day two, put everything back in the museums. Day three, bring the statues back down. Day four, you got to chop, 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 chop. Your promises have to be aligned with what you say. Accountability. And that's all I'm going to say about that.
I agree. When you're right, you're right. When you're right, you're right. I just think, man, that like right now we are in a time of, I think it's important. It's so very important. Like I just said a few minutes ago, that we as a race figure out how to put all our differences aside. I don't know why we are the only race of people who have so many different issues that's causing us to kill each other and die. Mm-hmm. And not saying that whites don't kill each other and Asians don't kill each other, but when you look at the numbers across the board, we killing each other at a faster rate than anybody else.
So I got these statistics right here. That's a good point. Black victims, and this is intraracial crime. Black victims, 56% black offenders. White victims, 55% white offenders. Hispanic, 27%. So just looking at that, I mean, people generally, typically hurt each other when you're in the same race more than hurting anybody else, right? Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like just, that's because, I think that because of community, right? The closer we are to people, those are the people who, if we have bad people, they're going to inflict bad things on that person. So, is that any different than any other race, though?
I would say no. Like I said, I just often wonder how it is. Like just this year, and I forget the numbers here in Fort Wayne, as far as juvenile homicides right now, but I know they're excessively high, way higher than they've been in years, and you just wonder what can make these kids so angry at each other. Like Eric, I'm a fighter. I come from an era where we used to fight, but even being a fighter, knowing that I do okay with my hands, I didn't like to fight. And so a lot of times I only fought when I ain't have no choice. But these kids grabbing these pistols and just shooting. And I'm just wondering, like, what in your mind makes you wake up and say, man, I'm going to go out here and kill somebody today? You know what I mean? Like, or what gets you to the point at that moment where you know? Because I know when I raise this thing up, the chances of me killing you are very, very high. So what gives you the courage at 14, 15 years old?
Do you think that our culture is helpful towards kids raising guns? And if so, how so?
I absolutely believe that the culture plays a big part in it because the music, the video games, the everything you see on TV, it makes it popular.
If it's one of those that you just mentioned, which one you think would be more influential than the other?
I'm gonna have to say I would probably go video games first for some of these younger ones, just because I know that so many of them spend so much time playing these games. These are the breaks that the moms get, or the dads get, so they don't have to necessarily be right on top of their kids, and they can do kind of what they want to do. And then I would go to the music.
I would say music number one. I got nothing else to say. Because I just know, like, when I was a juvenile in Chicago, the music kept me going. I was involved in stuff too. And the music was the main contributing factor. The music helped support the alcohol, weed, drug selling, crime. Everything was led by the beat of the drum. Mm-hmm. You could barely do one without the other, without music being the influence behind it.
I agree.
So for me, video games, there was a few guys I knew who sold drugs, who had video games in their car. That was cool. But you couldn't ride around and play a video game back then. And I doubt they're doing it now. For me, it's the music. We got drill rap now, which is art coming to merging with life. It's no longer rap when you talk about drill. It's accountability in this now. The words that I say, I have to be accountable to now. If I say I'm killing keto down the street, I gotta. What do? I gotta show you a blunt with the weed and saying that this is a kilo pack or something. You know what I'm saying? It's accountability in the rap now with the drill.
Yeah.
So for me, even more so, I kind of feel like the rise in the music has led to so many deaths. It's pretty hard to kill somebody listening to Jagged Edge.
I agree with you. The music, absolutely. I think, but I also I watch this constantly. You got these kids now. I'm 55 years old and I got this iPhone. I do okay with it. But I see a 2-3-year-old kid that get on an iPhone and use it better than me. And I'm like, and then they put these games on there for these kids where they killing shit. And you grow up into this whole concept, man. After so many years, this shit start becoming like a norm for you.
Yeah.
So, but
I feel you on that though.
Yeah.
The biggest game I seen them play nowadays is the Instagram game, or what's the one where you take the Snapchat game?
Yeah.
Where I can locate the ops on Snapchat, right? I can see drop your low K. What do you think? Drop your low. Drop your low K or whatever they say. Yeah. Drop your low whatever. I can't even say it. My kids know it very well. But they play Call of Duty in the streets now with real guns. So I would say it's a blend of that, but for me, it's always been the music. The music is when you really grow up and you take a step back and you listen to all of the shit that you used to listen to, it's heinous. It was heinous back then. It was heinous. It's heinous now.
Yeah.
It's not about anything to do about family, love, support, community.
It's about killing,
smoking, and banging, right? That's what it's all about.
Yep.
And when you get drilled over and over with that, the opportunity is there. It's easier to raise a gun. Like I said, it's tough if you're talking about love and romance to be like, man, it's tough for me to hold my hand up like that when we talk about love and romance, period. But when we talking about gang shit, it's real easy. I'm already primed. I think music is a primer, right?
That's a great example.
Like they said, a lot of people, there's a higher statistic of people who commit suicide who listen to country music because they said it's something with country music where it's aligned itself with depression, right? Because a lot of the music revolves around a lost love, right? Mm-hmm. And when you're dealing with a lost love, you get depressed. And when you have the music to prime your depression, and if anyone who's singing that song mentions picking up a 45 and, in it all, it primes you to maybe think to put yourself in that position. So the same rules apply to me, if you are talking about walking out, looking down the street, I see somebody who I don't like, and you can really see somebody who you don't like. That energy is still there to be. You're being primed to commit crime. So yeah, man. I mean, it's even like the mariachi music. Like now, that's narco music. A lot of that stuff from the Hispanic population. They got a whole primed music just like we have, which is the mariachis. Now we said
kilos,
bro. Right now it's about we think they singing about love. No, them brothers singing about narco culture.
Yeah,
they praising statues and talking about their favorite cartel members and their stories, and it's a primer for crime in the music industry. You know what? I was having a podcast with someone and we talked about that. It was a Haitian girl, and we were having this conversation about rap culture, and I mentioned that it's funny how gangster rap came into play right when they dropped the drugs off in LA.
Yep. And it all, like I said earlier though, like, here's the thing. Them people been playing long ball. Like, they knew that this was going to be a long game. So they started making the rules in 1970 that was going to be effective in 2025. You know what I mean? They started making the guidelines in 1970 that was going to change the course of things in 2025, I believe. And a lot of people tell me that I don't take this shit serious enough. Because for me, in my mind, bro, and this is how I have to think, because I've always had an issue with my temper and my attitude. And I could go from 0 to 50 real fast. And so the concept of that sometimes can become overwhelming and have you in your feelings and in your emotions. But when I sit back and think about it, the way that I have to deal with it is, like the one thing that I've been taught is just what I just told you. They've been playing the long game. And so I don't allow any of this shit to surprise me. I feel like everybody was surprised when Donald Trump got in office. And like you said, he started checking off the boxes. When we knew this shit was going to happen. We knew it. We just didn't want to accept it. And we didn't prepare ourselves for it. And so for me, I think that a lot of this stuff is strictly based on how you accept it, how you allow it to affect your life. And so I just try to just be real with myself about it. Like, I'm not surprised by none of this shit because I knew I've always been taught that they play the game differently than what we play. If that makes any sense.
No, it absolutely makes sense. And they have a new game to those people who actually sit back and, for some bizarre reason, come up with these tactics, right? And that's all you got to do. Instead of just enjoying your life and, you live in a great country. Most people inherently want to do good in the country, regardless of statistics. And all you can do is sit back and be motivated by enough hate and enough bias to where day in and day out, you sit down in a group of people who look like you and you figure out how to dismantle a race of people, right? It's very disgusting. It's structurally sound, though, right? Structural racism is very sound. But we know it exists. Mm-hmm. And we know it exists for a number of reasons because for me, even the solutions that are offered, I don't have a master's degree. I got a degree. I don't have no master's degree. But some of this stuff is very easy to understand. Like, for instance, why do so many black kids kill each other? You can say because of economic inequality and poverty, residential segregation and disinvestment, education inequities, policing and criminal justice policies, access to firearms, public health and trauma, social networks and cycles of retaliation. You can go down the list and you can have all types of conversations about this. But don't we realize at this point that it is a problem of density? Right? When the ghetto was not even designed for black people. Not at all. The Chicago skyline, which was project after project. When I was a boy growing up, my dad sold meat out on the west and south side, so I would always ride with him in his meat trucks and see the projects. None of that was designed for black people. Actually, it was designed for white people because they needed to be closer to work. So they designed those projects, and they thought, like, this is going to be the new age. White people are going to live in these skyscrapers. They weren't projects, they were skyscrapers, and they were going to be well-to-do. They're going to have parks in the middle, infrastructure all around it. All that stuff still was existing in Chicago less than 15 years ago. But the point of it is that was designed for them. It didn't work out, so they said, you know what, flip it, boom. Let's get the black people out of the sticks, right? Because that property is valuable. Let's put them in the projects because these things aren't selling well. Mm-hmm. How do we do that? As realtors and people who have investment properties who own these things, they said, let's build a bridge with the government and let's open this up to Section 8, right? That's how we created. That's how ghettos were created for us out of the disillusion that white people wanted to live in that crap. So now you ask, so when you think about it, New York, all these major cities had these ghettos, right? And we were out in the country, right? That just like, whatever, bad analogy, but we were out in the country. They were in the ghettos. What happened in the ghettos? Around the early 1900s, what emerged? This is a quiz question for you. Mm-hmm. What emerged out of the ghettos in the early 1900s? It had something to do with prohibition.
Oh, you got me stumped. I'm not sure.
The mafia.
Oh, okay.
The mob.
That's it. Yeah.
The mob. And you know what else emerged? White on white crime. In high record numbers. And it was allowed to flourish and operate for close to 70 years, to the point that in World War I, the Navy had to go and ask the mob bosses at the docks, could we use your docks? Could we get you to have your people support the fact that we want our Navy ships to come here and bring cargo in our own country? That's how strong and powerful that was allowed to flourish based off of too many white people living too tight together. Mafia, right? To the point where they had Lucky Luciano. That was the deal, to my knowledge, that they asked Lucky Luciano. The deal was, we'll give you the docks, but you got to free Lucky Luciano, who's in prison for the rest of his life. And they allowed him to go back to Sicilia or whatever and live out a life, and then the mob let control of the docks go to the Navy. So what I'm getting at is that anywhere that you allow people to live in dense urban sprawls where they're condensed into each other, the population will go to criminality because it's all of these things: economic inequality and poverty, residential segregation and disinvestment, education inequities, policing and criminal justice policies, access to firearms, public health and trauma, social networks and cycles of retaliation. So while we sit back and pretend money can be dumped into some of these situations to fix it, we all know the solution. We're all adults. The solution is get these kids out of the city, right? Because when you look at these numbers, right here in particular, homicides per capita rates. Black Americans, 21 people will be killed per 100,000. Mm-hmm. White Americans, 3 per 100,000. That tells me a different story. What that tells me is that we have too many black people crushed into urban communities. And we would have those same numbers if we had an acre apiece, right? Drive out just 15 minutes outside of this city, and you're going to see each resident have an acre of land. Just 1 acre, right, of land. 1 acre of land would allow you to grow something. 1 acre of land, so sustainability. Another acre of land would give you the peaceful element because you wouldn't have to co-interact with your neighbors all the time, right? It's so many positive externalities that come from just having more space to live. Now walk into our cities. They got less than 1/10 of an acre, excuse me. Right, we're very lined up. So no wonder why crime is something that is so heavy in cities.
Absolutely.
So what are we talking about here? If you want to dump some money in anything, dump some money into giving people opportunities outside of the city. Buy up some of those spaces outside of the county. Give those people unique opportunities to live and bring those levels down. When you live too close to people, your anxiety is higher.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're too intermingled. We got people who are generation over generation over generation lumped, right? Of course there's going to be retaliation. Of course there's going to, these people are living out generational problems. And you got to break that up. So that's just my point on that.
I feel that.
That was long-winded, but I'm sorry.
Man, but that's real though, bro. That's real.
Yeah, you can answer your phone, man. Go ahead.
Sure.
Yeah, this is all. Yeah, this is just I'm gonna get some water, and we'll finish. I don't know how much longer you got, but yeah,
probably about another 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Get to this
Conversation is interesting.
Absolutely, bro.
I'm gonna grab some water. All right, then the left one was mine.
Thank you.
You got the finest Target cups that were available for 99 cents. Yeah. Okay. So what else you got going on, man?
I am preparing for an event, what I'm calling a crime summit. Well, we're just gonna call it a summit now. The idea is this: we want to take a look at how specifically the violence, but crime in general affects the community across the board. So we're wanting to bring in people from the judicial system, prosecuting attorneys, public defenders, judges, police, victims of homicide, survivors of a homicide victim, survivors or families of perpetrators of homicides in the community. A big part of it, we want to focus towards the kids, but we want to just hear how this crisis that we're in and for right now is affecting people across the board, instead of just looking at it in one aspect or one side, or the mother or the father of the kid that got killed is. We want to know how it's affecting everybody across the community. We want to discuss it. We're also planning on bringing in some grief specialists, some trauma specialists, just mental health specialists, just so we can have a full-fledged conversation about this. Like I said, my biggest focus is this juvenile violence. It really, really bothers me if these kids are killing each other like that. But just crime in general in the community. So that's going to be in November.
What are the takeaways from that you're hoping to acquire?
The biggest one is going to be that I'm hoping that after we hear all of this information and have all these discussions, that we're able as a community to sit down and come up with some action plans, something that we can put in effect immediately, that we feel can do something to counter this crisis again, and bring these numbers down or bring them to where they're non-existent at all.
Okay. Okay, that's interesting. What do you I know you're very deep into just the research aspect of this too. How many of these kids actually understand the criminal justice system?
Honestly, I would say none of them. I don't think any of them actually understand it. I take that back. I think that there are a few of them that got some general understandings of it, but pre-criminality. Yeah, that part I'm gonna say zero.
Okay.
I don't think any of them. I don't think they realize that it is what it is until it's that. You know what I mean? Like these kids, and I keep saying this age group because just a couple weeks ago they just arrested two young men and charged with attempted murder and burglary or robbery or something like that. A 13 and a 14-year-old. And I'm sure, I haven't had a chance to talk to them yet, but I'm sure that they are sitting in themselves on a daily basis and they like, what the fuck is this?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like I was 19 the first time I went to jail, prison, and whoa, it was a shock. Like literally, it was a culture shock. And so these kids that are catching these cases where they're gonna be gone, 30, 40 years, there's no way that they understand that they understood that until they got themselves into it.
Yeah, my thoughts is like, which is a weird way of thinking about it, but how a fly gets caught up in a spider web, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt in my mind that flies have no clue what spider webs are, right? They're just walking, right? Or just flying, They're like, oh, I can fly right through that. Bip, there you go, you stuck. And then you get stuck on this web, and then here comes a spider to roll your ass up, right? And suck the blood out of you. Now you're just a shell of what you used to be. And that's how I look at the criminal justice system for our kids, because I don't think they really understand the web of what criminal justice is, the long-lasting effects, the stickiness, the entrapment of what the criminal justice system is, which is why I asked about the educational side of things for the youth. Do you plan on addressing any of that?
Absolutely. So the plan is here in the next, sometime at the beginning of the year, man, to acquire a building and start these mentoring groups and these educational sessions. I personally believe that lived experience is the most valid approach to the situation that we're facing right now. And the reason I say that is because if we can't relate, we can't connect. And so I feel like, I got two friends. Both of them have served time for murder. Both of them served a lot of time for murder. Both of them are back home now. Both of them are being productive in the community. Both of them have, made statements to me about how they wish, that moment hadn't happened. And so getting a chance to sit some of these young people down in front of these men and let them explain to them, what that moment was like, how that moment affected their life for the rest of their life. Even though they out now, this is something that you got to deal with for the rest of your life. And then also getting an opportunity, I'm hoping to be able to form some kind of connection with the Indiana Department of Correction and have the opportunity to connect some of these young people via Zoom or teleconferencing, a video call or whatever. And because I got people who I know who are doing hundreds of years in prison right now. I got a buddy doing 172 years, another buddy doing 60 years, another buddy doing 50 years. Let's try to give these kids a visual of what it looks like when you have to deal with the consequences of your choices of important decisions. And maybe that, because I think that it's just a matter of sparking that thought process, the willingness to change your thought process. A lot of these kids, the one thing that they're capable of doing is becoming one-sided. So once they get their mindset on being a gangster or whatever comes along, however that goes, then that's where they are. And so then you end up with them having to deal with the repercussions of shooting somebody, killing somebody, getting caught selling dope or whatever the case may be.
But when I watch a lot of guys who do that, when they tell their story, their personal accounts, of course, kids who already have some type of knowledge, and a strong family background, they're never going to do it anyway for the most part, and that's good enough for them. But for kids who have already had some connection with the criminal justice system, they almost look at those gentlemen who are sharing that story as almost like heroes, right? They made it through. So how are you going to unbridge that relationship? Because for some kids, they'll look at that and they'll have the wrong view of what that person is trying to actually say.
That's a great question, Eric. My theory on that is, I think a lot of it is your approach towards this young person, because like you said, we have to realize that a lot of them take a look at it and view it from this perspective. And so I think that the way that you approach that young person, and I don't quite know how to explain it, but I think a lot of it has to do with the approach. I think that if you come to this young person with that braggadocious, then they're going to take it for that, and that's going to leave them. But when you come to them and you're pleading with them to understand it, I'm trying to save your life. Mm-hmm. Trying to change your thought process, because the way that you're viewing this right now is completely unacceptable. I think that's our only opportunity to hope. Well, a lot of us just hoping that it don't happen.
I think making it not cool is a good start.
Yeah.
Right. I see guys get up there and they, half the time they're explaining their situation. Right. And I want to get back home to my mama and I want to do this and I want to, raise my kids. But on the other end, when I was in there, I had to get down. I had to do this. There's a lot of problems in there. COs and they almost are like making it cool, almost like something you see on like a rap movie or something like that. Like I think you got to get that coolness element out of it. I don't know if guys need to go and do these things wearing prison suits and shackles as a symbol of like, look at me. I'm still shackled. And I'm willing to come out here with this suit on that I used to wear and with these shackles on and maybe have a guard stand next to me while I explain the story because it's going to bring me back to where I don't want you to ever be. I've seen dudes do this shit in Jordans and chains. And it's the craziest. It's crazy to watch. Pick the people who are still traumatized, the people who still have lack of resources. Even you yourself, you could probably explain your situation, but everybody knows everything good about you now. You know what I'm saying? You're an amazing person in a community. So it's fantastical almost.
Yeah, but I make sure I leave with my story. Just like what I said earlier. One of the biggest things that I try to point out to people is I still deal with everyday black man struggles. Living paycheck to paycheck, family issues. I got a sick mama. My kids, all my kids, I got some relationships with some of my kids that are great and relationships with some of my kids that suck. You know what I mean?
I seen you cry too. And I think that was huge. When I saw you do one of those a few months back, a month or so back, and it was totally organic. You didn't have to, but it just brought back that emotion because it was very hurtful, the things, and I felt that. And I think that that's one thing that we have to do is tap into the empathetic side of our young men, right? They have to feel what you're feeling.
So, bro, I want you to think about it like this. Like, and you said it earlier, like we all are very, very close to our moms. Men are normally closer to their moms. And so one of the biggest things that I have to deal with on a day-to-day basis now is that, for so long I was running back and forth to prison, in and out of trouble, ducking and dodging, doing all this stuff. And then they told me my mom had early onset dementia. So initially it was just, she might repeat herself a couple times. Now it's to the point where I go in my mama's house and she don't know who I am. I'm her firstborn child. One of the things that I preach to these young men or young women that I work with, first and foremost, is the respect level that as a child, you are obligated to give to your parents, specifically your mama. Because your mama carried you for 9 months, brought you into the world, nursed you, fed you, whatever she had to do for years. Some of us was lucky enough to have daddy there. But daddy was working, trying to make sure all the bills was paid, working 8, 10, 12-hour days. And so mama raised a lot of us. And so for me, losing my grandma in 2008, going to prison in 2009, coming home in 2012. By this time, my mom is this early onset dementia stuff is really starting to. So now she telling the same story over and over again. She repeating the same thing, all the way to the point now where sometimes I have to change my mama's adult diaper. Sometimes I have to give my mama a bath. I have to feed my mama. And so. Understanding that I missed all them years where I could have been making things good with my mama and trying to figure out how to make them good now because of this disease, it doesn't really matter because she don't know what the hell's going on anyway.
You lost so much time.
Bro.
And if you love your mom, that's the hitting point. It's like you love your mother. The time is precious.
Talking about super. And you miss it. I miss it. I go over there. Sometimes I can't even go over there, bro. It'll be some of them days where when I know it's time for me to go check on my mama. And I'm just going to be real with you, bro. Just don't be in me. Like I just ball up in my couch and just lay there. Don't watch TV. Don't scroll. Don't do nothing. I'm just there. Like my mom was on my mind the whole time. But it's hard for me to go see her like this. Hard.
Yeah, my mother got heavily addicted to drugs, and even that was prison for me, right? Because the time when you're supposed to connect, grow up, it's not there, and you never get it back. I totally feel that. Yeah.
But like you said, just removing that braggadocious aspect of it and making it more human, making it more realistic. Like, and God has blessed me with the opportunity to present. I mean, I run into some boys that I just can't help. We just can't help. They ain't trying to hear shit you saying, and that's the part that we got to realize. Like, it's some of these little dudes out here that's really some monsters.
Yeah.
You know,
they've already had too many encounters. They've already done too much. You can't unsee what you see. On that note, with those people who can be unfixable at times, that's what they say. I mean, they say it like in Washington, D.C. They said that they found out that out of, and this is just me rambling a little bit, but the numbers were like astounding. Like out of 100,000 people in an urban community, it's like 4 people who are committing 70% of these crimes.
Yeah. I talked to a detective here in Fort Wayne, and I forget what the total black population in the city is, the juvenile population. It was somewhere around 30-some thousand, 30-some in Fort Wayne. And out of them 30,000 people, it's probably like a pocket of like 120, 150 of these kids is actually out here like that. You know what I mean? And like I said, I don't want to shirk the idea that, or send the idea that some of these cats, they got to go to prison. They have to go. There ain't no saving them. But it's some of these ones that's just getting caught up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they are involved in, you know, they got these little groups and these little cliques or whatever, and they just want to be a part of something and make themselves feel viable, and then all of a sudden now somebody like, oh, you ain't gonna shoot, you ain't gonna shoot, and now they got a body, they're on their way to prison, and these little cats ain't thinking about it no more.
But it's probably only 20 leaders out of every group.
I bet you.
I bet out of this whole community,
yep,
it's less than 25 people, no matter what the age is, who are telling kids orders, who are helping them, giving them drugs, who are telling them to go steal cars, you know, go steal from stores. About 25 people. And that's why, and to just kind of wrap things up, I know you got a busy day, but which is why I think a big tool that we need as a people to combat the problems that we have is coming up with a successful campaign to end the no snitching rule. Hell, the mafia snitches, or it would still be around, which is why the people who are creative enough to create criminal organizations know that you need to successfully campaign against being snitched on. Mm-hmm. So they campaign, actually. They have great marketing, drug dealers and gang leaders. They have great marketing. And the marketing is unfortunately violence within their own community. Mm-hmm. So we got to figure out how to come up with something where people have a easier route of telling on these actors and conspirators.
You know, you would think that. So I just went to the closing arguments for a trial a couple weeks ago for one of these kids. He was 20 years old, and he got found guilty on all counts, and he's looking at 137 years. So you would think that when you hear somebody gets sentenced to 37 years, it would make you say, you know what? I can't do that kind of time. I can't do 2 hours in my room. So what I'm going to do in prison for 137 years? And for me, that would be enough. You know what I'm saying? Like that, I'm telling. Especially if I ain't got nothing to do with it. So what I'm hearing is this young man who's closing arguments that I went to, he had some involvement, but he wasn't involved in the murder.
And they don't know that just because you didn't have anything to do with the murder, you were an accomplice, and you can get the same amount of time. Kids don't know it.
They don't know that.
That's the part of the web.
Yeah. So I think that, and it's funny because I just set up a meeting with Judge Fran Gold where I'm going to ask her to give me an opportunity to start bringing some of these kids to some of these trials. Let them sit through these trials. Let them look at the evidence. Let them hear the arguments. Let them look at that man sitting there at that desk with them handcuffs on, with these 12 people that's got his whole life in their hands. Mm-hmm. You know what I what I mean? And so that's some of the stuff that I want to start, trying to do in the community, like to try to. And I hate to use the term "scared straight."
Scare their asses, man.
Yeah,
they need it.
Yeah,
I'm scared. Prison scares me
to death.
To death.
And I've been there.
Yeah, I haven't, and hearing stories like that scare the hell out of me, right? Because I'm cognitive enough to be scared.
Yeah.
See, when I was 18 years old and I was in the military, I wasn't even cognitive enough to know that I could die. When I went to Iraq, I had no clue. I was prancing around there with a weapon. I thought it was cool. I put myself in some very bad situations because I had no concept of death. And I think our kids don't have a concept of death. They don't have a concept of morality. They don't have a concept of the criminal justice system. They're basically walking around like a blank piece of paper. And unfortunately, the people with the set of markers are the drug dealers, the gang members, and the street.